This place was registered to an enchantress of interest, Lucia. It sure doesn't look like a saboteur or smuggler's den. On the workings of Archons by L. de Crassus. Seems promising. Dumb?
Certainly topical. Probably not enough to go on by itself, though. Still significant.
Bitter cold. And everywhere. Aeroliths acting up again.
I wonder if the plants have adapted to endure sudden frosts like these.
There's no way this is natural. Feels like frost magic.
That aerolith can influence the weather. Almost certainly why things are frozen over.
Malfunctioning, then?
Indisputably. The ice buildup must be causing a cyclical localized reaction.
Sure. I'll take care of it.
Good idea. Swampy environs and intense cold is bad even for Enclave parchment. Best to lower the risk.
There. Already warming up. Hope I didn't damage the priceless artifact too much.
Can't make an omelette, as they say.
A lot of notes here. Water damage from the cold and melt, though. Let's see. Materials. Huh. That's how you visualize a pattern. Lots of marginal notes. These have to be from Lucia. Ah. She mentions a flood in the later passages.
Sev and I will look at these together with her book then. See what we can learn in context. As Aurea says, candle is burning on our flood problem.
Any luck with the materials we gathered from Lucia's workshops?
Yes. I'll let Sev fill you in.
We started with the book, which was painfully dry and highly theoretical.
Unsurprising. The Enclave was notoriously tight-lipped about the construction of the arcs.
The book was still useful, as it contained a number of craft-specific terms, shorthands and annotations. All critical. Referencing the book clarified the notes.
Without it, they bordered on deranged rant, especially at the end.
Sort of a window into her thinking.
We suspect Lucia spent a long time in isolation while working on these.
She covered many topics, but the most prominent was her work into the flood.
Who exactly was Lucia? It seems like she had a lot going on.
Brilliant, but disturbed. She harbored a severe hatred of Enclave leadership, bordering on obsession.
Reams of fiercely colorful text, just to say some very rude things. Especially about the Eye, their leader.
She was also, at one point, one of the most respected enchanters in the Enclave. She worked on something she refused to name, but was clearly of deep significance to the Enclave itself. Called it the source of all our problems.
Sadly, she only danced around that subject, and never offered details.
All intriguing information. But we should focus on the flood. Does she have an answer for us?
Partially. This is the design.
Her research led her to one conclusion. To stop the floods. She needed to disrupt a barrier of some sort.
This confirms our theory from earlier. She's talking about the barrier established by Asylum.
Her design is detailed and specific. The device it would create inverts the flow of magic in enchanted objects, disrupting them for a time.
We think the devices we found on the Arks were prototypes, small experiments to determine efficacy and duration.
So what's the catch? If the floods are still happening, clearly she didn't build one.
Lucia's thimble, as she calls it, requires some highly specialized components. It has to withstand considerable magical flow, far more than what's produced by an Ark.
It's like how mass scales exponentially. Just because you can build a scale model of an aqueduct doesn't mean the real thing can support its own weight.
Thankfully, that supply cache you found has the necessary materials to handle that kind of magical flow.
Solar can pick up where Lucia left off then.
Exactly. The other thing we'll need is a source of magical flame. Solar's mantle won't be enough by itself.
I can handle that part easily. Okay, so we have clear next steps. Just one more thing. What happened to Lucia?
The flood. Our best guess, at any rate. There's no sign of her.
All right. Let's go over everything we know so far.
We know that, for a time after the surge, civilians continued to live in Tenebron until they were forced to evacuate the city. We're still not sure the cause.
Wherever the Hearthsiders went, they're still actively sending scouting groups to scavenge for supplies. From the uniform, the creeper who was watching Bryn sleep belongs to one of these groups.
We also know that a defensive procedure codenamed Asylum sealed access to the Enclave underground. This was done using a barrier almost exactly like the Veil.
Lucia, an ex-High Enchantress, opposed Asylum and began working on ways to sabotage it.
Her research forecasted that the barrier would cause the Enclave to flood with miasma. The very same flood that seems to have killed Lucia before she was able to finish her thimble.
But we have her design. It could disrupt Asylum's barrier.
So Lucia's thimble is the key to our survival.
It's less a key and more like a magical battering ram.
Whatever works.
What is it, Lane?
It's just... I've pored over all the documents we've compiled, and a concrete link between the evacuation plan and the underground is nowhere to be found. I can't shake the feeling we're missing something.
The Enclave destroyed a lot of information from their documents. Could that be why you can't find a link between Asylum and the evacuation?
I considered that. The Enclave may have hidden their location from Lucia.
Being a weaver isn't about being certain all the time. It's about taking calculated risks to carve a path forward. And regardless of the Hearthsider's location, disrupting the barrier is the only option to stop the flood.
You're right. I just hope that if we did miss something, it doesn't come back to bite us.
Even if it does, we will handle it.
That settles it. Bryn, it's time to use the thimble.
Thank you for your help with that, Bryn. You've a deft hand for flame magic. You can wear Sev's apprentice hat for one day. Also, Lucia knew what she was doing. This thimble was clearly designed to pair seamlessly with Enclave constructions.
Must be her experience as a High Enchantress at work.
Based on Lucia's notes and what we discovered at the Bastion, this was custom designed to disrupt Asylum's barrier.
If it can stop the flood, we need to use it soon.
Agreed. We don't know how much time we have left. That console that looks like our scry should be the controls for the barrier. The thimble was built to interface with it.
Time to Great timing. I owe you one.
You need to come with me. All of you.
We mustn't cause a panic.
Sure. It's not like we had a dire supplies shortage on our hands before this happened.
What do I tell the High Enchanter? The Guild will want...
Enough. We won't discuss this further. Not in front of our guests. Identify yourselves.
Aurea Harpenay, or Silverbeak, as I'm known among Weaver circles. This is my band, and beside me is our acting point.
Bryn. And you are?
Khan Stunild, Eye of the Enclave. My colleagues are the Spindle and the Axle, representatives of the Enchanting and Crafting Guilds. Who sent you?
Sent us?
Taza? Renland? Udea? The Enclave is the envy of the Maida for its magical prowess. Clearly one of those nations has finally grown a spine and decided to take it for themselves in our moment of weakness.
Moment? No one sent us. We came here by accident.
What kind of fool do you take me for? You expect me to believe that you bypassed our veil, infiltrated our loom gates, and breached asylum without a national power backing you?
When you put it that way.
This is a misunderstanding. We're Weavers, like you. There was a brief opportunity to enter the Enclave for the first time in decades, and we took it. Everything we've done since we arrived has been to uncover what happened here after the Surge. And to find you.
If that is true, have you really no inkling of the trouble you've caused?
No.
Your reckless conduct has unleashed an enemy that nearly destroyed us 27 years ago.
The Surgeborn. They first appeared a little over a decade after the Veil went up.
Where did they come from?
No one knows. But they arrived in the Underworks before making their way to the surface.
Where they left a trail of destruction in their wake and wreaked havoc on the Enclave.
Causing casualties to rise.
And so I called for a retreat here, saving countless lives. We sealed the Surgeborn in the Underworks for good. Until now.
Obviously, it was not our intention for this to happen, but it did. And for that, we're sincerely sorry.
Agreed. This was all an unfortunate mistake.
A lot of good your apologies are doing us now.
Look, Surgeborn or not, we had no choice but to remove the barrier. Though I suppose we owe you thanks for warning us about the floods.
Who warned you?
You did.
Did we? I'll deal with you later.
While we can agree Arakim breached no contact protocol, it has proven to be the right decision. The floods were growing worse, and now they have stopped. Even if fixing them has introduced a new problem.
One my band would be more than happy to help you solve.
Ha! Work together.
Sorry to interrupt, but you mentioned your last name earlier. Any relation to Shireen Harpenay?
She was my mother. You know who she is?
Of course! I mean, before my time, obviously, but she's still renowned in the Enchanting Guild. Her work is remarkable. There's a statue of her in Denevron, you know?
Oh. I can't believe she didn't mention that.
There is so much I'd love to ask you, but for now, Aurea comes from a long bloodline of outstanding and renowned weavers. Shouldn't that buy her band some grace?
All right. Your presence in the outskirts will be tolerated. Nothing more.
What about the Surgeborn?
What about them?
Shouldn't we work together to deal with them?
We could use the help.
The Surgeborn are a problem for anyone in the outskirts, not us. Cassidon's Hold is a fortress.
The scouts do head into the outskirts to scavenge for supplies.
We'll take our own precautions. Speaking of, we have pressing matters to attend to.
But...
Enough! My word is final.
Bryn, the one that led us here is clearly the one that warned us. Try to talk to him before we leave. Maybe he's willing to work with us.
Will do. Hey, Arakim, was it?
Oh, just call me Arik.
Well, Arik, I never got a chance to thank you. You know, for grabbing me before I fell to my death.
I think you had it. Besides, I couldn't let you plummet into a chasm. The Eye is pretty peeved with me, but hey, that's just a bonus.
You seem awfully trusting of us, considering the terrible first impression we've made.
Well, I was spying on you the first time we met, so let's call it even.
Sure. Maybe you know everything already then, but have you got any questions for me?
Just one. Why are you here?
Decades of war across the Maida followed after the Surge. Magic and Weavers were blamed for all of it. Without the Enclave as a stabilizing force, it's as if the world outside has splintered into factions, divided by chaos and fear. Not to mention the lands surrounding the Veil are completely shrouded in tangles. I'm here to bring down the Veil, and play a small part in restoring the Maida Basin to what it was before the Surge.
Wow, that's a big picture vision if I ever heard one. If that's truly what you want, then dealing with the Surgeborn is the first step. Ever since the Veil went up, our people have been in crisis. They've spent so long in it, they're afraid to do what it takes to get out. It doesn't help that some have benefited off that same crisis.
Who?
Who always benefits? The very top.
Our leaders are too preoccupied with their own concerns to form a unified front against the Surgeborn.
Such as?
The Spindle is obsessed with getting the Arcs functional again. She believes that will help us regain control. And the Axle is too stressed about our supply shortage right now. But, if their concerns were handled, they could pressure the Eye to finally address the Surgeborn.
That sounds like an opportunity. And are you a representative yourself? Do you have sway?
Representative, yes. Sway? No. I represent the Scouts, meaning I'm at the meetings, but I don't have the title to back me up. The Scouts were once points like you, but our role has changed since the Veil went up. We were effectively drafted into scavenging for food and supplies. It made sense following the Surge, but it's been years. Recently, we've even been separated from Cassidan's hold and the remaining civilians. Anyway, it's the guild leaders who will need to pressure Khan Stanild into dealing with the Surgeborn, which is what needs to happen before we can even think about tackling the Veil.
Sounds like I've got some palms to grease.
Yuck. But yes, I'll come by your camp later. We'll be able to speak more freely there.
What is that about?
The Eye isn't one for idle chit-chat. That's worth watching.
Talk to you back at our camp.
You got it.
Sev, you all right?
No. I mean, yes. I'm fine.
You sure?
Bryn, the rest of us are heading out. See you back at camp.
I got to go.
Excuse me, but Arakim mentioned you're the Spindle, a leading representative for the High Arcanists.
Oh, yes, that's correct.
We wanted to formally introduce ourselves. I'm Aurea, as you know. This is Dam, our enchanter, and Bryn, our acting point.
We didn't catch your name earlier. Khan?
Just call me Isla. Is there something I can help you with?
We'd actually like to help you. Apparently you want to restore the Arcs.
Shh! Not so loud. Sorry, that sounds wonderful, but the Eye won't be happy about us collaborating.
Pooling resources and sharing knowledge is hardly a bad thing. Why would the Eye be upset about us trying to help you?
It's complicated. Anyway, I do want to fix the Arcs. More than anything. I just need you to be quiet about it.
Okay. We'll try, but forgive us if our excitement bubbles over and we forget.
It's Dam. He's the one that might forget.
We know that the Arcs began malfunctioning after the Surge. A select few were even sabotaged. Any idea on what caused the other malfunctions?
Some theories, but nothing solid. Anyone who knew how to create Arcs, let alone fix them, died before I was born. I've tinkered with an inactive Arc that's lying near the Grand Gate, but it would make a world of difference if I could study a resonance that was freshly harvested from a great Arc's pattern.
Consider it done.
Bryn's got you covered. She has a knack for harvesting great Archons.
You'll have it in no time.
If you're sure, I certainly would appreciate it. With discretion, of course.
Right.
We've been talking a while. You'd better go.
I am simply telling you, as the foremost leader of the Enclave, that I don't want you getting distracted.
Can you clarify what you mean by that?
You know exactly what I mean. Eyes down, know your place. Focus on your own problems. Organize your little craftspeople. Keep the wheels of civilized society greased. And don't dare to presume you know better than me.
If you have a problem with my performance, you are welcome to gather feedback from the people who elected me. They may have a clearer understanding of what I bring to the table.
We'll continue this conversation later.
Khan Atme. Allow me to formally introduce you to Bryn, the Weaver Band's point.
You're the Axel, right? Arakim says you're a good person to know.
I am. My given name is Haroon, as Arakim said, but you may refer to me as Khan Atme. It's a pleasure to make your acquaintance, despite the circumstances. And I wish they were better circumstances. The new Surgeborn threat requires us to realign our priorities. Some are a little slower on that than others.
If there's anything we can do to move things along, I'm at your disposal.
What about the supply shortage? I've seen her in combat. She's better than any of us.
What's her help look like? I'd prefer if she could avoid unleashing another apocalypse on us.
We didn't bring a lot with us, but if there's anything we can provide to you, our quartermaster, Kasmin, will be happy to help. A decade working the maiden shipping lanes turned her hard as Khan steel.
She sounds lovely. But unfortunately, we're supplying 10,000 people, not 7 weavers and their pack beast. And I doubt you'd have enough on your caravan to make much of a difference. Fortunately, there's a silver lining to your Surgeborn mess that could solve the problem.
Count me in.
Right. With the Surgeborn unleashed, we're anticipating casualties and damage to our facilities. However, there's a restricted area in the underworks that we lost access to decades ago when the Eye sealed it. The Institute. An arcane laboratory where the Enclave conducted its enchantment research, among other projects. Inside the Institute lies a significant supply cache. Its contents will be enough to keep us going, for the time being. If the notes the previous Axel left me are accurate, though, there's an additional complication.
Of course.
The Surgeborn secure territory by building structures, akin to insect hives. The Institute is likely overrun with them, and has been for 20-odd years.
So, the Surgeborn are a long-standing threat to the Enclave.
I wish I were old enough to remember what it was like to live without the fear of the Surgeborn. As a child, I sat awake every night worrying about them. They were terrifying. Knowing what I know now, I should have been even more scared.
I'm sorry you went through that. It must have been horrible.
Thank you.
All the more reason to actually do something about the problem, instead of spending our lives cowering behind the walls of our glorious fortress.
You'll hear no disagreement from me, now that the game board has been upended.
Sounds like I need to clear any Surgeborn hives from the Institute, then.
That'll thin them out enough that my scouts will be able to access the supply cache without much trouble.
Now that Asylum is lifted, we should be able to access the loom gates in the Institute again. I'm going to trust you with this key swatch. It's been gathering dust for over 25 years.
Only the Eye would let such a crucial resource sit there for that long.
Yes. If we're clear on everything, I'll get back to work. My list of obligations grows by the minute. Someone has to keep this goddamn fortress running.